Hello, and welcome to Resilient Relationships. This workshop and several others are being provided to you by the Bow Valley Family Resource Network. My name is Anthea Messier, and I am a relationship counselor and a social worker in the Bow Valley. And it's my pleasure to present these workshops to you. Today's focus is moving your relationship from negative to positive. And although we're offering these sessions during this time of social distancing and COVID-19, all of the topics that we're covering apply no matter what's going on in the outside world. So what is resilience anyway? It is the capacity to recover from adversity and pursue your goals despite challenges. It helps you survive the worst day of your life and thrive every day of your life. I like this definition because it reminds us that there's two parts. Resilience is not just about survival. It's about embracing and doing well in the everyday. The same set of skills and resources emotionally and mentally that get us through the hard things also help us to enjoy the good things. How we feel and act both over the course of our lives and in specific situations is determined by three factors: the challenges we face, the vulnerabilities these challenges trigger, and the strengths we have for meeting the challenges and protecting the vulnerabilities. If we've done something before, quite often we know what to do then. We know what tools and resources to use to meet that challenge. For instance, if you're having to do public speaking or make a video and you've done that before, you know how to set yourself up for success and protect your vulnerabilities, thinking about when are you doing this, where are you doing it, and what are the things that you're looking for. But in relationships and in our current world, it's hard sometimes to be facing the challenges and vulnerabilities because we haven't done this before. And we may be sometimes surprised by what our triggers are, the things that are upsetting us. When we watch the news, we can see other people's triggers as well. And that may create some anxiety and worry or a sense of depression. So it's very normal to be struggling right now in your relationship and in your own mental health. Lasting well-being requires resilience, and so it requires effort in building our mental resources, being aware of that negativity bias, and being intentional in switching that to a more positive focus. The negativity bias, according to Rick Hansen, is something that helps us to survive. It's there to keep us safe. We need to know what's dangerous. We need to know what the risks are and anticipate them and protect ourselves from them. So our brain is wired to grab on to that negative stuff, those bad experiences, so that we don't forget them. Once burned, twice shy. We want to make sure that we don't get hurt again. And so our brain is like Velcro for the bad. And unfortunately, the side effect of that is it's also like Teflon for the good. We don't make space for the good. Good may or may not keep me alive, but bad definitely does. So if I assume that there's risk or danger, I'm going to be more careful. If I assume that things are good, I might take more chances, and that might be the end of me if there's a pterodactyl outside my cave. So the negativity bias is when we are scanning our environment for bad news. If you look at the world today, turn on any device, and you will find lots and lots of bad news. It's hard to avoid it. We may over-focus on it, overreact to it emotionally and behaviorally, and we are installing that negative stuff in our brain in a very physical way in our neurons, and we are missing the opportunity to build positivity. The brain becomes more and more sensitive to the negative, and we create vicious cycles with the people around us. So in couples counseling, lots of times I will see this negativity bias in action, where one person is maybe talking about all the things that they're doing that's so wonderful, and the other person is then also talking about their own stuff. And there's very little that they're seeing that's good in the other person. Lots of criticism, comments that sound like contempt, defensiveness. Those all tell us that this relationship is in a very negative space. And it takes action and decision and humility to move that to a more positive space. Doctors John and Julie Gottman have called this negative sentiment override, when everything that's going on in the relationship happens to be proof that things are bad. And it's very difficult to look even into the past when you first fell in love, when you first thought everything was wonderful. You had oxytocin pumped through your system and everything seemed great. And a negative sentiment override, you don't see that anymore. It's always been bad. We've never gotten along. It's never been good. I don't even know why I'm in this. We don't feel appreciated. We don't feel connected. It doesn't mean that that's real. It's just the way our brain is focusing right now. I think if you look back, look through photos, look through letters that you wrote to each other, messages, you'll probably find some good. And the good news is, most of the time in healthy enough relationships, you're going to find good in the everyday, but we don't see it. We're busy defending ourselves and making sure that we get the appreciation and the connection that we need, and we're not necessarily seeing what the other person needs. Right now, we're spending maybe a lot of time together, and it's difficult to have a perspective because we're not able to step away from it and see what's good. We have 3 fundamental needs that our brain is wired to protect and to feed. The first one is our safety, our physical safety. And we are wired to avoid harm. So anything that looks like a risk indicates danger, whether that's social, emotional, or physical. We are going to do everything we can to avoid that and protect ourselves. The second need is satisfaction. So approaching rewards. That's a part of our brain and our structure that makes us try to do well on a project, to cook a good meal and enjoy it. Because if it was just about safety, we would look strictly for nutrition and not the pleasure that comes from enjoying a really tasty meal. So we approach rewards, we work towards things. We look for what's beautiful and good. Maybe that's in creative ways, but it's something that we need that helps us feel complete and satisfied. And then connection. We are the most social animal on earth. From the minute we're born, we are working at connecting with other people. Babies will mimic their parents' faces within the first half hour. They'll start to open their mouth if their parent opens their mouth or caregiver. We are built to connect socially and emotionally with one another. And right now, we are challenged by that in our larger social circles because we haven't been able to have that connection. And as great as videos and online sessions can be, it's not the same. The human brain craves that eye contact, being able to read each other's facial expressions, and we crave that physical connection that we have when we're with one another. So that is an area that most people are struggling with around the world right now. And the flip side of that, sometimes we're not getting any privacy or alone time or a break from one another, whether that's in a couple's relationship or as parents, because we are spending so much time in so many roles in small spaces. So our fundamental needs are challenged every day, but probably more right now than we're used to. So if we want to move from a place of negative bias to positive bias, then we have to be making an effort and being intentional. So we become more compassionate by repeatedly installing experiences of compassion, the same thing with gratitude, and the same thing with patience, and any other trait that you would like to build in yourself that you think would help you to get through the difficult things. When I say install, I'm talking about taking time to make it not Teflon and just go past you, but to really stop and integrate things into the way you perceive and the way you experience. So if I'm trying to be more compassionate, I can look for experiences where someone shows me some compassion and think about, how did that make me feel? Where did that land? What emotions was that? How did that affect my drive or my will to do something else? How did it affect my overall mood? Then I can try being compassionate. So slowing down and taking care and concern for someone else. And then again, stop and think, how did that make me feel? Where did that affect me? Did it make me want to do that again or maybe less? I have to check in on that. And did I see the reaction that it had for the other person? How did it impact them? And every time you do that on something that you're focused on, you're creating neural connections in the brain so that you can access that same thing later. Neurons that fire together wire together. Our brain is on fire every day with connections that are being made, and the ones that we focus on and use the most become our strengths. It's like the difference between a well-worn path and one that no one ever walks on. You have to use it over and over again. Your brain is like any other part of your body. If you want it to be strong in a particular way, then you have to purposefully use it in that way. So we get to make a choice. Am I going to focus on the positive or the negative? And that's called neuroplasticity. So the traditional saying is that the mind takes the shape it rests upon. The modern update is that the brain takes the shape the mind rests upon. So if you think of your mind is how you use your brain. Your brain is the physical structure. And we know from all of the tests that we're able to do now that your brain can actually change structure and shape, even as an adult. When I was first in university, they were telling us that after adolescence, that's it, old dog, new trick, not going to happen. But we know now that you can definitely impact certain parts of your brains. When they look at people that meditate, you can see that there's a part of the brain that grows and thickens that helps them in their meditation. But there's other parts of the brain that benefit from that, where they actually develop more empathy for the people around them because they're taking that time to know themselves and to check in on their own emotions. It makes them more in tune to the people around them. There was also a study where they looked at the brains of people who were going to be driving taxis in England. And the part of the visual memory in the cortex, they measured that before they began courses and studying and memorizing the maps and the whole city. And at the end of that, of the courses, their brains were actually shaped differently in that area, thicker and stronger, because they had used that visual memory so much. So we are able to change the way our brains are made. So if you're thinking, you know what, I've always been negative, I've always been kind of down, I've always struggled with this. Okay, you always have. What are you going to do about it now? So when you look at your relationship, you can apply neuroplasticity to being happy in your current relationship. It doesn't mean that the negative stuff, the difficult things are going to go away. It's just about how you think about them and how you treat yourself and how you treat your partner in those difficult times. In order to restructure and to change our experiences in relationships, we know that we need a 5-to-1 ratio. So for every one negative experience, we need 5 positive experiences to create that balance, to change that. But we choose whether we're going to focus on the positive, the negative. We also choose whether or not we are going to treat the people in our lives in a more positive or negative way. So a simple activity you can do to build a culture of appreciation and positivity in your relationship is to spend some time every day thinking about your partner, thinking about the life that you share with your partner, and apply the idea of those fundamental needs. When do you feel safe? When do you feel satisfied? When are you connected with that person? Think about it in the big things and the small things. The Gottman Institute talks about small things often. It's not that we need a trip to Disneyland to feel like we've had some fun with someone. We can find some fun in the everyday, in playing a card game together or going for a walk. We have to narrow things down these days into being more simple, more calm, but also more positive in the way we are approaching and thinking about them. I know when I was online playing a board game with some friends, my thinking to begin with was, well, this isn't the same. This isn't fun. I wish they were sitting here. But when I shifted and started thinking, I'm so glad I get to see their faces and we get to play this board game that we always like to play, I started to relax and to laugh and to enjoy it more. And so when we're looking at that safety, satisfaction, and connection piece, we need to be thinking about enough, not best, not maybe ideal, but what's enough? Because sometimes enough is all we're going to get, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So when am I satisfied versus stuffed? When am I feeling connected at all versus isolated or completely connected? It's on a continuum. There's a range in there. We need to start to look at that range as being healthy and okay. So when you spend your day thinking about what you like about your partner, even if it's small, And then you tell your partner about it, saying something like, I appreciate, and then name the characteristic that you've seen and describe a time that day or any other day where you saw that in action. So an example I have here is, I appreciate how patient you are. Today, when the baby was crying and I was stressed about work, you kept calm and helped both of us. You should be saying and hearing things like that in your relationship at least once a day, hopefully way more than once. Saying things like that to your children, saying things like that to people over the phone or on video, so that we know that we are appreciated, that we are connected, and that we're safe in our relationships. If you don't say it, you can't assume that the other person knows it. So here's some character traits that you might be able to talk about with the people in your life. If you go online, there's lots of lists like this. So be creative. Make sure it's a true compliment. And if someone is saying to you, you know what, I love your optimism, don't interrupt them and say, yeah, well, yesterday I wasn't feeling so optimistic and I did blah, blah, blah. Your job, if someone is complimenting you and noticing one of these character traits that are the foundation of resilience, or any other pleasant and lovely thing about you, don't discredit it. Accept it. Say thank you. Let it land. Spend that time saying, oh, how does it feel when my partner compliments me? How does it feel when my child says, you're the best mom ever? It feels pretty good. So all of these ideas are based on resources from Dr. John Gottman, Dr. Julie Gottman, and Dr. Rick Hansen. They all have resources online. John and Julie Gottman have written numerous books about relationships. Dr. Rick Hansen has written numerous books on meditation and mindfulness, and this whole idea of the positivity taking over the way you think and the way you experience your life. They also have videos online and different resources. So I encourage you to look into these for more information. In the Bow Valley, we have lots of resources and things that can help you in your relationship, but also in life in general. The Bow Valley Family Resource Network is connected to the town of Canmore, and they are available for parenting support and connection in many, many areas. They're there Monday to Friday, and so here's their contact information. Family and Community Support Services is also a part of the town of Canmore and has resources across the lifespan. The town of Canmore and town of Banff both have help desks set up right now during this time of COVID and can connect you to resources, whether it's around finances, housing, employment, how to apply for different funding programs, where to find mental health supports. And always, we have 211 in the Bow Valley so that you can find information and access resources for anything from healthcare to food and whatever you need. So if you call any of those agencies up, they'll be able to point you in the right direction. So I encourage you to take this time where things are a little bit slower maybe, or just different, and see it as an opportunity for growth and change. And I encourage you to continue to try to improve your relationship and to improve your own mental health. I wish you well.